think we're going to get started. In my line of work, if you're on time, you're late. So we're going to start early. Welcome, everyone. I'm super excited to see that you joined this session out of all the other amazing sessions. I'm excited to lead you through a bit of a AI Unlocked. Now, just for reference, this is not going to be a deep dive. If you want to get more of that, in the afternoon, I'm going to do the second part, and that's going to be more of a advanced version. So if you're just starting with AI, this is great. If it's probably lower than what the level you expect, just know that I'm really going to the most common denominator is someone that probably just heard of AI and they're like, what is that? So we're going to start there. So with that, I'm going to get onto our workshop because we only have 30 minutes and it's going to have to go fast. Now, at any point, if you have questions, you can raise your hand. I'm going to do my best to try to address it. I would like to keep questions towards the end. Maybe jot that down on that little notepad that you got in the welcome pack, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to stay here much because you have this description in that beautiful document, whatever you call it, that they gave us. One thing I was going to mention here is I also led the AI session last year. So I'm curious if any of you were there last year. Okay, my helpers, they were. So thank you. Number one. Another thing, I am a mom of 2 and 8 and 11, and my 8-year-old just turned 8 today. So you get me here. You must be very special because she definitely is a bit of a drama queen. We always say that she is 8 going 14. So we'll see what happens when she's actually 14. All right, I'm going to start with a quote because unless you have never actually even heard about AI, you want to start with this because this comes from Fei-Fei Li, and Fei-Fei Li is what is considered to be the godmother of AI. And what she says is artificial intelligence is a tool to amplify human intelligence. It's a tool to amplify human creativity and ingenuity. And why is that important? It's because I know there's definitely a lot of fear when it comes to AI about replacing jobs, about replacing us humans. In my experience, and I've definitely dived deep into it in the last 2 years, it has helped me improve efficiency like nothing else. It has helped me get more productive, do more things. All those things that you saw on the previous slide that I get to do, including competing in bodybuilding competitions, running 3 businesses, having a podcast, is because I have been able to use AI to automate a lot of the tasks, the mundane tasks that I don't have to do. And I have VAs and I have employees and I have people that help. But let me tell you, the amount of work that I can get done in a day is unbelievable because I also do take advantage of the tools that are out there. So my goal is for you to look at it as an assistant, and I think I need, okay, hopefully that projector will stay on for as long as we do this session. There is no word of caution when it comes to AI, and that is when it comes to regulations, because they're just starting to emerge, and the impact varies very much from industry to industry, from country to country. So keep that in mind, because just like the mechanical loom, just like the internet, just like cloud computing, just like everything that was disturbing in our day and age, AI has had disturbed our industries, and it will continue to do so. So that's also not to say that we should be afraid of it. Now, when it comes to AI, it's no longer a matter of if, it's a matter of how. And the key here is learning it, how to use it efficiently, how to look at it as a way to upskill and reskill, because the more you understand those tools, the better you'll be able to apply them in your daily life, in your professional life, in your businesses. And I'm super proud of you for being here because basically that's what you're trying to do right now. And as AI adoption grows, it is vital to explore the practical ways in which you can implement it to your daily life so that it becomes that 24/7 assistant that you can rely on. And AI, the way I look at it, is very much that competitive advantage that it can give you. So if you don't adopt it, the truth is someone else will. There's no more option. You can't just be lying on the sides and say like, we'll be fine, we'll be fine. No, you'll be living under a rock. Don't live under a rock. And with that, in today's session, lighting fast session, what I want to cover is basically just an overview of like introduction to AI, the AI landscape, a short AI glossary, some prompting basics and prompting frameworks, and then leave a little bit of time for Q&A. And before we dive in, I actually want to learn a bit about you, where your comfort level is as far as AI is concerned. How many of you are using AI in any type of capacity? Okay, that's good. Anyone wants to shout out what tools you're using or the one tool that you're using the most? ChatGPT. Okay, so I will refer to a lot of the things that I say as an LLM, large language model. I will probably use ChatGPT just because it's the most common, understood, but it doesn't mean there's not other options. Like a lot of people prefer to use Copilot or Claude or Gemini, Perplexity, Gork. I mean, I have my favorites as well. So just know if I say ChatGPT, I don't necessarily mean just that one tool. It can be applied across the board to many other LLMs. Okay, so how did we get here? Initially, computers were those glorified calculators. They needed someone to give them instructions. They needed someone to program them. Now they can learn, they can think, they can communicate, very much like humans do, and they can even perform creative and intellectual tasks. This technology is now known to be Gen AI and is very much seen in products like GPTs. Intelligence, the way I see it now, is available sort of like this giant brain in the sky that you can access. Although it's not perfect, it is improving a lot and is definitely impacting everyone and every industry. AI, or artificial intelligence, has been around for decades, and it was very much used in techniques like machine learning. When you think about your Amazon shopping experience, the last 20 years was very much predicting your shopping patterns through machine learning. Same with Netflix. What you're going to watch, what you're going to listen to, Alexa and Siri, all of those tools have used a form of AI, which is machine learning, to learn us and then hopefully assist us in better ways. So what is then Gen AI? Gen AI is a type of AI that can create new content, create new ideas, including conversations, stories, images, videos, code. I mean, just the other day, actually it wasn't the other day, but a week or so ago, I learned Python for the very first time. I swear to God, I never programmed in Python, but I had a project that I needed to use Python, and I was like, how hard can it be? ChatGPT, take me step by step, and we're going to do this. And guess what? So we did. So at the end of this, I'm going to show you what I built as a custom GPT that is fully automated. Like the only thing you need to do to say is do this one thing, and it's going to pull information that's already accessible to it because I programmed it to pull it from a specific spreadsheet. The other ChatGPT won't do that because it doesn't have access to that information. So a couple of days, of like being in front of the computer and swearing several times over, but I did it. And if I can do it, anyone can. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You don't have to have some crazy knowledge of IT and computers to learn a new skill step by step. So these systems, they're basically pre-trained using a method that is called self-supervised learning. What that means, they've been very much fed a huge array of data, and they have been able to use that to then create new content. ChatGPT, for example, an example of Gen AI populated and brought by OpenAI, is an advanced chatbot that was powered by machine learning and pre-trained on many modalities and a lot of data, which is commonly referred to foundation model, because what it does, using this new architecture, which just was discovered in 2017, the transformer architecture, it was able to become fluent in human language without needing any expert or any trainer or any programmer to tell it what to do next. The scale and scope of Gen AI, as I alluded to earlier, has been made possible in the last few years alone because we've had some huge advancements in computing power. We had the availability of large-scale data sets Don't ask me where that data set is coming from. That's still a question of ethical AI, but also the development of this transformer model architecture, which again was introduced just in 2017. And there's definitely a lot of remarkable potential in the way we're moving into the future with Gen AI across a broad range of businesses and industries. That being said, to speak again to that common fear that I hear about so often, AI is kind of like forcing us and making us more aware of the so many nuances of our own work. Like, for example, writing a book, drafting an email, preparing an argument, drafting a contract, editing a picture, creating a brand new film and movie requires a lot of work. And some of that work is not fun and is not novel and is not creative. So to quote actually Pinar Demirdag, she is the CEO of Kuberic, and Kuberic is one of those Hollywood companies that are changing the way that movies are being made. She said, she's known to have said, we are learning to distinguish the tedious, laborious parts of our work from those driven by our humanity, by our vision and our authentic selves. So one thing is clear. The future of work has changed and is still changing, and it's changed more than it has ever done before. Obviously, we had the Industrial Revolution, and during the Industrial Revolution, probably some of you were not around. I know I wasn't. Workers were very much feared that they would lose their job and they would be replaced by machines, just like we fear now, right? What that meant, actually, the mechanical loom, what it meant for them was that once they got trained, productivity soared, but also better paying jobs and better jobs overall happened as well, and better wages allowed. We saw the same thing with computers, with the internet, the cloud technology, as I mentioned. And in the age of AI, the way I look at it is algorithms will handle those repetitive tasks, those mundane tasks that will allow us, hopefully for the better, to focus on what truly matters, on us being humans, emotion, vision, creativity, authenticity, because robots would always be better at being robots. But we humans will always be better at just being humans, and it will empower us to become more independent and innovative, but also very much aware of what are the things that we should be doing versus things that they're not necessary for all of us to do. Earlier this year, Microsoft and LinkedIn came up with this 2024 Work Trend Index report for AI. And yes, we know AI adoption is surging, but just in the last 6 months alone, they were looking at how 75% of the global knowledge workers now is using AI at work. 46% of these users started using AI just in the last 6 months alone. 90% of them, they very much reported that AI has helped them save time. 85 said it helped them focus better. 84, it boosted their creativity, 84%. And then 83% actually said that they started enjoying their work better because they didn't have to do all those long spreadsheets and analysis and things that you just don't like to do. And if there's a way for AI to do that, sign me up. I don't want to do that. Now, it would be nice if AI could also cook my meals, clean my house. We'll see when we get there. And so bring your AI to work is becoming very common. AI is very much raising the bar and is breaking career ceilings, is creating new opportunities and challenges. One thing that I wanted to highlight here is this statistics, which like at first I was like, whoa. Basically what is said here is that leaders, people that are hiring people, they prefer AI skills over experience. For the longest time ever, it was your experience that led you to better opportunities. This is when this paradigm is changing. This is when we need to pay attention because now 71% of leaders are preferring a less experienced candidate with AI skills over a more experienced one. Now that is something to think about because AI skills are no longer just an option or something nice to know or have. They're very much essential to your career growth. So keep that in mind. All right. So I'm curious as you think of your own workflow, because again, like I said, in the age of AI, you really need to dive into what you do on a daily basis so you can identify which part of your work can be optimized with AI and which parts require your humanity and your emotional intelligence versus the rest to be, taken over by some automation, by an AI tool that can do that uplift for you. You don't have to answer out loud, but just think about this. Like, what part of your work, as you think about your entire day, your entire week and month, could be optimized by AI? Take some notes, and based on that, that's where your focus should be. Because yes, you could be doing everything. And as the speaker earlier said, we women do tend to get our hands into so many things and do it all, right? Do we have to do it all? Can we have some helpers along the way so we can maybe do something more enjoyable, take care of ourselves better, have a little bit of that I would call work-life integration, because there's absolutely no balance. So let's get really quick through this AI short glossary. And if some of this seems repetitive because you're already like one step advanced, I apologize. But for anyone that's, again, like I said, brand new to this terminology, I would like to just break it down. So when we say GPT, basically that is a generative pre-trained transformer. Think of it as a GPT that is a super smart writing assistant that can read vast amounts of data and text, and then it uses that knowledge to create and generate responses that sound human, but also are very much contextually relevant. The way that works is basically a GPT would analyze the patterns in the text, and then it learns how to predict words that should come next based on what you ask it to do. GAN, or generative adversarial network, that is where a lot of that terminology and technology is actually used to create images. So imagine like when you have two different AI systems in a competitive setup. One of them creates an image and the other one tries to determine, is that image real or fake? And this image generating AI, as known as the generator, then gets better and better and better at producing real images. And then the discriminator has to get better and better and better to determine, is that image real or not? And once all of this kind of like combines, that's basically where you get that process that really helps improve the quality of the generated image over time. And a lot of the images that you see in this slide are actually generated by Midjourney. I do use Midjourney a lot, but there's other tools out there. DALL-E 3 is very known within ChatGPT infrastructure. Copilot has its own set of image generators. Another cool one is Ideogram, which I started playing with. So there's no lack of image generators. And we're going to cover a few more just in a few minutes here. NLP, that is natural language processing, and that is basically what is behind Alexa, behind Siri, and is the ability that helps computers understand human knowledge by enabling, and Siri just started on my, shut up, Siri. You know when you're like at home and you have your Alexas and you start talking and it starts talking out of like, I didn't ask you anything. That's what just happened. So the way NLP works, it breaks down sentences to grasp their meaning. And then that allows for answers to be more, to make sense, to be comprehensive, and then also follow the commands. And all of those technologies are right now used under Gen AI in ways like, for example, a GPT would help create content, write books. I mean, if you want to go there, GANs would generate images, and then NLP would help our other devices that we're not going to name right now understand what we're actually saying. And when I say LLM, that's basically the large language model, and it is basically a artificial neural network. And the way you think about it is like a complex web of numbers that all work together to process information. These networks, they can handle text, images, it converts them into numbers, it processes them, and then it converts them back into text and images. LPU is language processing unit, and that is great for efficient natural language processing. AGI is theoretical AI with a broad, flexible intelligence, very much similar to humans. We're kind of moving towards that with especially the latest O1 preview, O1 mini that ChatGPT came up with, this reasoning models. And then ASI is future AI. This is where I don't want you to freak out, but you know it's coming. That will be surpassing human intelligence in all aspects, including creativity and reasoning, decision making. But we are not there yet. So for this time right now, we're good. I don't know about my kids. Like, I fear about what it's going to look like. All right. So as mentioned earlier, training these models really involves giving them a large amount of data so they can learn. They guess the next word, and then if they get it wrong, they adjust their response and they adjust those numbers slightly, and then they keep repeating this process that is called backpropagation. And then human trainers also have had a huge role in this because they were able to refine those models during the pre-training time by providing feedback on the inputs, as well as teaching them to avoid mistakes through reinforcement learning with human feedback. A lot of the AI biases comes from this process. So if you think about who were those humans that were behind computers in some low-income countries and retaining those models, you have to know they had their own biases. So when you use any of those LLMs, you do have to use it with a grain of salt. You have to understand that no model is perfect and no output is perfect. So that's where human intelligence and emotional intelligence comes handy. Now, Gen AI models, they can vary in speed, they can vary in capability, in cost. Some of them can be installed on the computer or in the cloud or on the phone only. Some of them are free, some of them are not. Some of them do specific tasks and some of them do all the tasks. So knowing which tool to use for what is very important. So that way you can say, okay, I know that if I want to write new content, this is my go-to tool, versus if I want to create images, I probably go to Midjourney, or if I wanted to create something really creative, probably I'll go to Claude. So knowing what tool works for what is very important, because yes, you can say, well, is there like one tool to do it all? Not really. You're going to have to go in between different tools to do different parts of your work. Now, one thing here really quick, what Gen AI is basically is great at creating content, text, images, code, based on which foundation model you're using. Is great at learning from vast data sets and that human interaction, that human feedback. And it can really excel at handling all types of tasks, like coding. It did that for me, or solving math problems. Don't tell that to your kids. Like, I'm still, my kid is in middle school, and I definitely introduced him to ChatGPT, and every so often it's like, why can't I just use ChatGPT to solve this problem? No, you cannot. You're gonna have to do what I did when I was your age, so you actually know math when you're a teenager or adult. I mean, how much math do we still know? That's a different question. All right, what Gen AI isn't, it doesn't think or understand like humans, or at least not yet. It works on patterns, not on true creativity or reasoning, even though, like I said, the O1 preview model has started to become quite impressive at reasoning tasks, but it still lacks that human intuition and creative decision making, which we humans are really good at. All right, so this is, based on that song, It's Raining Man or It's Raining LLMs, which one to use. AI tools have changed the way we create content by letting us generate all kinds of things like text and images and video and audio and code by just giving it a prompt. Now, not all text to X, and you're going to hear me say that a lot, because what I mean by text to X is like text to image, text to text, text to video, text to audio. There's a lot of text to something, right? Not all of them are created equal. Not all of them are meant to do the same thing. And that's why it's important, as I mentioned, to know specifically what you need to do so you can use the right tool. There's obviously some multimodal AI tools out there that can handle multiple things, like Copilot is a great example of that, where you could go and get some great content created, get an image, even though like the image generation Copilot, I have like mixed feelings about. But by knowing what you're going to use is really important, because then you can pick the right ones for the job. So that being said, here's just a brief introduction to some of those tools out there. And I promise you, this is not all of them. I could only fit so many in those little boxes, so I did my best. But text-to-X, think of those tools. They're great to generate new text from your prompt. Think of applications like ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Perplexity, Claude, and they're also great at brainstorming ideas, writing blog posts, writing scripts, drafting things, or even creating and writing code, as I said. Now, one word of, I guess, advice here. Don't just ask it to write something. We're going to go through one prompt that I always use. If you've never used that prompt, I would suggest that you do, so that GPT that you use really learns your voice. But don't just take that, yes and amen type of content. Give it a thought, run it by another LLM, make sure that it's not hallucinating. And also, like, give it your creative input. I wake up in the morning with a gazillion of ideas, and my workflow is I will get on my phone and I really, I go in ChatGPT and I use the, voice function and say, okay, this is what I have in mind. I want to write a piece of blog post or content or whatever, and this is my original idea. This is what I'm thinking, blah, 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 blah. Can you refine this text and can you turn it into whatever it is that I want to give it, right? But it comes from my original thought. What I needed to do is do better at formatting some of those phrases, do better at actually making more cohesive and more comprehensive. Text to image, lots of those as well, where you basically use text prompts to create an image or a visual representation. There's many great ones over there, and a lot of people I know, they rely on Dolly because it's part of the ChatGPT. I do prefer Midjourney, but again, there's not a wrong or right one. It's whatever works for you. Text to video, those are great for creating video content. And I mean, Runway has been blowing my mind with some of their latest developments and their Dream Machine, where they create some amazing reels. And I use those for B-roll, for some of the production video that I create on the other side of the company. And it's been fabulous. Those are great tools, especially for marketing, for educational materials. Tools like, for example, HeyGen and Fantasia, they create AI avatars. I've been using an AI avatar to introduce my podcast for the last year and a half. And I swear to God, you cannot tell the difference by looking at it if it's me or my AI avatar. Now, I did give it a name. Her name is Mira, and she does not talk with my accent. We're still working on that. But she's been introducing and the way that works, basically that workflow is I would give it the transcript of the podcast once it's recorded and just get key takeaways, and it basically spits out those key takeaways, and that's the introduction. Imagine you not having to record a bunch of videos like for employee training or whatever, any other application that you can think of. You can use an AI avatar and literally just script, and it goes to town to do that. And it can look just like you. Nobody could tell if it was you or not. In the future, a lot of those AI avatars are very much predicted to join Zoom calls. So to join those meetings that you don't have to be present, and it just gets the meeting notes, and you're like at the gym, like I would be working out, and all my AI avatars, multiples of them, doing all the meetings. I'm like, oh God, I can't wait for that day. All right, text to audio, two up here that I'm gonna highlight, Udio and Suno, great examples. They really create some amazing music. Now, my husband is a music composer, and I introduced him to those tools, and I'm like, okay, can you outdo these tools? Yes, he can, because he's better at it. But it was fantastic to see him actually lay over in the tracks his compositions with additional like beats and music and whatever thing that he was creating through some of those tools, and creating things that it would have taken money and orchestras and a lot of production for him to do something that now you can so easily do with AI. Now, I'm not going to get into the topic of how now what happens to our composers, what happens to original content. I think it can work together in harmony. I do not think that AI is a point where it can create a Beethoven or Mozart like type of symphony, but who knows? We might be getting there. Then we have text to 3D, great for anyone that's in architecture or design, and then text to code, which is some of the codes, some of the tools that I use. And then video to test, this is the opposite of text to video. And those are great tools. For example, I've been using you probably use Other AI in some of your transcripts. Read AI is my go-to that goes and joins automatically all the Zoom meetings, meets, and team meetings. And what's cool about it, actually, not only they gives me, like a breakdown of what was discussed and the key takeaways, but actually give me sentiment. Say I have a high-stake meeting with someone and I want to know how they feel about it. I go back and I look at the graphics and analytics of that conversation, and it reads body language, and it gives me a good idea. Was this conversation going anywhere? Like, is there anything to this? Is there some prospecting power behind this versus just me trying to go through that and analyze it? I'm not the best people reader, so for me this tool is great because it helps that. And I'm sure you had the AI companion in Zoom that you've used before. Okay, so we covered all of that. So when it comes to how can AI help my business, I mean, think of things like drafting emails, creating content, generating leads. And in my next workshop, I'm going to go more into the generating leads and the creating content. Now, here's when I would use draft an email. And I've used this before. I get an email that just pisses me off. And if you were me to answer back, there will be no more relationship there because I am fiery and I am feisty and probably not be the right thing to do. Yes, you can take a break from it, remove yourself from there, come back at it later. But in the moment, you get like really hot on the keyboard, right? Not anymore. I will take that email, run it through my AI assistant, and say, respond in a polite way, and I send it away. And I'm no more emotionally involved with that response because I basically removed myself from that situation, and maybe I saved myself some embarrassment. Who knows? Great ideas here, also answering frequently asked questions. A lot of chatbots try to do that, especially as they're embedded more and more in websites. Unless you had to deal with a chatbot, probably some of those are really annoying. Like I was flying somewhere and my flight just canceled just as I'm about to get on it, and I'm getting on the Delta and trying to connect to the chatbot. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's not going anywhere. I'm like, I need to talk to a human. This is when human interaction is so important. So take that with a grain of salt when it comes to embedding chatbots within your own website. That's not to say that they're not great to answer some questions, basic questions, but there should always be a hand off to someone that actually can take that conversation. So you can prospect, you can actually close a deal versus just let AI go a little crazy and then the person gets annoyed and never comes back, right? Okay, so any other examples? I'm curious from all of you that you've used AI either in your business, your work, or just personal life. You raise your hand. I want to hear. Yes, go ahead.
So I have to create IDPs for employees for the first time. So I've talked to my employees to find out what their long-term goals are and have put in what their motivations are, what they're really skilled at, that they're really good at, and then the opportunities that we need to develop, and what the end goal is. And it created a whole IDP for me.
What does IDP stand for? Just for anyone that doesn't understand. Okay, fabulous. Love that. Anyone else? Yes, I'll come back to you.
Hi, great. So this looks on the slide, and so that requires a large social media presence, and I hate social media. So I use ChatGPT often to go in and I'll put in a prompt like, write me a social media post about X, Y, and Z, include this and that, and what it writes is so much better.
And there's no shame in admitting that, I promise. Like some of my LinkedIn posts are so much better and amazing because they're refined, they're enhanced. That's, I think, the key word there, enhancement and refinement. And one more example there. I love it. So in the beginning of the year, actually, I was consulting with a company and tasked to hire a high-level position in their company. And let me tell you, I had to go through that process that HR goes all the time, and kudos to you, but that's not my full-time job. And I had this like a zillion of resumes that I needed to run through. I didn't need to run through. I just had to get my Lindy AI assistant, run through all those resumes on a specific prompt, and then tell me based on like a 1 to 5, how close are they to this job description, and then give me questions from their own resume to ask them during that 15-minute interview that I had with the ones that I wanted to actually, have a conversation. And let me tell you that it was so fast, that whole process. And it was right. It wasn't like I was cheating the system. It was, still me with the resume in front of my face talking to this person, but it was just giving me a leg up instead of spending hours upon hours trying to look like, oh gosh, is this person even like, how much out of the, people that would apply for a job, like a high majority of them, they're not even qualified. They're applying for the wrong job. Like you have nothing to do with this job description. Well, good for you for the confidence level, right? For even applying. That was a great process. And let me tell you, the one person that I had that intuition, this is the right person for the job, and I had no sway in the decision, that got hired. Because it's, again, AI enhancement, AI assistance, but also human intuition. You do not let go of that human intuition because you're right when you're right. It's only after they're like, man, I wish I would have followed that, right? Because I know I was right. Okay, here's the one prompt that I mentioned. You really need to use this. If you haven't yet used any LLM, ChatGPT, and I can have all those slides sent. I know that Danielle is collecting the slide deck, so it will be a URL that you can all have access to. But basically, this was the first thing that I did with my first ChatGPT ever. I wanted to know my unique tone and my unique voice. So if I go and I create new content, it doesn't sound like a robot. The lady that was saying that she writes children's books, you already have a huge data set of content that you've written. You don't all have to write books, but you have emails, you have blog posts, you wrote something in your life. Use that as a way to train your ChatGPT or your Copilot, whatever it is, so that it remembers. Now, I will say for ChatGPT to remember this, you will need to have that pro account. I can give it instructions. I can tell it exactly what words not to use. And I have a very long list of things that I don't want it to say revolutionize and moreover, and all those words that you hear pop up like so much since with AI, right? So you really want to do this so that at least when you create new content with the help of AI, it will sound more like you, like how you would normally talk. Another prompt that I give it, which is part of the instructions for my GPT, is talk like a human, please. Like, seriously, what is this verbose expression of what you're trying to tell me? Like, no, none of that, please. All right. Basics of prompting. And this is important because creating advanced prompts is key to getting the most out of any interaction with Gen AI. And this skill basically involves you designing prompts. And by prompt, what I mean is basically the practice of providing the AI model, whatever that might be, with a specific input so you can get that desired output. And you have to be specific, but you also have to break it down sometimes into smaller steps in order to make that response be more clear. And for example, like here is an example of a basic prompt. Write me a business plan. I'm like, okay, I'll write you a business plan. How about a specific prompt that says, write me a business plan for a downtown cafe that is targeting young individuals or young professionals and includes sections on marketing analysis and marketing strategy and operations and financial projections. Do you think the output is going to be the same, the first prompt to the second prompt? Probably not. So if you have specifics about what you really want, the same way how I asked my husband, can you get me that? And he's like, what? I'm like, it's in front of your eyes. It's like, no, it's not. I'm like, I don't see anything. I don't see what you see. Like, be specific and ask exactly the right things that you're looking for to get. And that is basically the basics of prompt engineering. So what makes a great prompt is clear and concise language, persona that you assign to ChatGPT. Here's an example for that. Excuse me. Act as a nutritional coach. And here's a picture of what I have in my fridge. Help me cook something for dinner. But you give it that persona, right? Or act as a cook, or act as someone that now from all the huge data set that he has, then he focuses on this one ask, on this specific role that you've given it. Information and examples are great, specific tasks, like I said, and then refinement of output as many times as you need to. Effective prompting is obviously very much needed. But here's the cool thing about prompting, and as you get better at it, you also get better at being a good communicator in real life, because you're going to start to realize how when you make some ask, or when you ask something in your head makes a lot of sense, but to the other person, it's like only a quarter or a half of the information that they need to perform whatever task that you ask them to. So simple prompts are perfect for quick ideas. I'm not saying that they're not great. Some type of like fast answer with very much of a minimal effort. You can ask it, for example, to generate a list of blog posts that are like blog posts for marketing, or blog posts for, I don't know, like consulting jobs, or like something that doesn't really need a lot of priming. Or then you can go and design a more advanced prompt, and that, you know, would have more specific information that you give it. So the ask is more concise, and that's great for business purposes. That's great for anything that requires a bit more reasoning, right? And a couple of examples here. Zero-shot prompting is basically where the model responds to a prompt without any prior training on the task, like the example there. Few-shot learning is where the model is given a few examples in the prompt to kind of aid understanding of what you're asking, and then responds in accordance. And then the step-by-step prompting is where you actually really needed to explain concepts or provide answers in a step-by-step format. Is something that I used when I was, learning Python to code my brand new GPT. And it was just always, you ask it, take it step by step. Now, one of the things that I was gonna mention, because all of that is great, and wouldn't that be easy if it was just that? But it feels like every time a new model comes out, the rules change. So the rules for prompting for the O1 preview and O1 mini have also changed. Because what they want you to do is, in order to unlock those reasoning capabilities, is you have to change your prompts from how you use a GPT-3 or GPT-4 so that it matches the chain of thought architecture that this new model was built on. So a couple of tips here. First off, you do need a pro subscription to ChatGPT to use this model and to access it. You got to keep your prompt simple. You got to avoid chain of thought instructions. You got to use XML for clarity, and also test it with challenging questions and philosophical questions, whatever it is that you want to, and then analyze its thinking by clicking on the thought process. It has this thinking little button that it's an indicator of how each response and what's its reasoning behind each of those responses. And you don't have to remember all of this, because guess what? I have a free ebook that teaches you all of those prompting frameworks. So if you scan the QR code, I go into tabular format prompting, ask before answer prompting, perspective prompting, constructive criticism, comparative, reverse prompting. There's a few prompting frameworks that I go to that are specific with examples for businesses. All right, so here are the key takeaways that I hope that you'll remember from this session. One, GenAI is a useful tool that will help you, your team, and your business greatly. The better you understand it, the more it becomes that valuable asset and an opportunity rather than a threat. The biggest limitation is your imagination, not the technology that you're using. And prompt engineering is an essential skill, but like all new skills, you need to practice it. So my best tip is experiment and make this part of your daily life, and just learning will happen automatically. Okay, let me go back for a second. So the next tool I'm going to show you here is Google just came up with a brand new tool called Notebook LM, and a new feature called Audio Overview. Why is this interesting and cool? Because you can feed it a range of documents. And I'm talking about, say you have training documents for your employees for onboarding, or who knows what type of processes you have. And there's all these long documents that you've created or you have access to or your company does. You can feed it all those documents and it creates a deep dive, a takeaway, a major takeaway between all of them, finding basically the line, what connects all those conversations. So what I did in this example, it's only 60 seconds long. It's actually 10 minutes long, the whole bit. I took 10 different transcripts from my podcast from a different season. And each one of those transcripts were like a 1 hour long conversation. I ran it through this tool, and it gave this conversation between two AI hosts. And when I shared this with my network, they like couldn't believe that it wasn't me and another guest engaged in this conversation. So give it a listen really quick. But this is fascinating because basically also means that, you know, this is the new way of doing podcasting. Like all those podcast hosts, bye-bye, if this is what could follow, right?
Okay, so picture this. You're planning an event, but instead of drowning in spreadsheets and like a million emails, you've got AI as your co-pilot.
Helping you create the perfect experience, right? From start to finish.
Exactly. And we're not talking about some far-off futuristic fantasy here.
No, this is happening now.
We took a deep dive into a bunch of Events Demystified episodes, and the guests were industry leaders who are already using AI to change the game.
And it's mind-blowing how AI is working its magic, not just in those chatbots you see popping up, but like in ways that could totally change how events are designed and how people experience them.
Okay, so we're talking about AI that can help us create awesome content, right? And personalize the event design.
Even optimize the entire agenda for, you know, maximum impact.
Yeah, Julie Solaris, the founder of Bold Push, he's all in on this.
Oh, absolutely. He's convinced AI is going to completely change the events world.
A total game changer.
Yeah, and, you know, he backs it up with some really interesting insight.
Okay, so that was just the part. But imagine if you could take some of that content that you're sitting on that's been kind of like collecting dust and turn it into a informative podcast for your business. And you don't have to like lift one finger. You don't have to go through the production hassle. And let me tell you, I've had a podcast for 5 years, and it's not always nice and unicornish. There's a lot of work that is involved for that. So now you have access to something that could create content on your website based on your information at like snapping of your fingers. Okay, another thing here, if you're like me and you don't care for trying on clothes at stores, you don't have to do it anymore. It's fun. I mean, I also love AI for fun, but this was like the last picture I had in my camera roll. So that's what you get. That was me last night after my workout. And I'm like, what about if I try some outfits on? Obviously, one of my hands over there, it's like, it feels like, AI didn't know what to do with it. But it's like, I literally like got this new outfit on. I'm like, all right, maybe next time I'll, go for that. But what you can do with this, actually, you can upload the image, you can upload different outfits, and then you get the output, right? If you're in fashion, like imagine that you want to do a lot of this new type of image or with new outfits on your website for, for purposes of showcasing your outfits. I know my friend Leah here has lots of purses. How about like uploading you with all those purses, and every time you put that out there, it's a tool, right? So there's fun part in AI as well. There's the practical, there's the productive, but there's also so much fun to be had with it. Probably I'll have to redo that picture next time, but I thought I'll just mention it because this tool just came live literally Monday. So I'm definitely gonna mention it. All right, so with that being said, Gen AI, just like the cloud, it is an opportunity to up-level one's career. And I'm sorry if you don't feel like doing that, but you have no choice anymore because you have to. You either partner with it or you don't, or someone else will. And this is the first step in that AI journey. And yes, it could be challenging, but the rewards are also substantial. And I can tell you that, like I said, running businesses, running podcasts, doing all the things that I do. I travel a lot for events and I do produce events. And I also engage in bodybuilding competitions, which you don't just engage in a bodybuilding competition without training for a bodybuilding competition, which takes a lot of time, right? All of those things. And then also being a mom and a wife and having some friends, hopefully still have some friends. All of that is something that I'm capable of doing because I have looked at AI as a support system, as a enhancer, as that competitive advantage that I can rely on to help me get better at what I want to do next, to help me identify what are the things that I shouldn't be doing and let it do its job so I can focus on the things that I really, really want to be doing. So embrace that change, innovate relentlessly, whatever that looks like for you in your line of work, in your line of personally and professionally. And then one other thing that I was going to say is, when it comes to the future, we get to shape that future. It's no longer just the future is here, the future is now. We get to shape it by the way we upskill, by the way we move forward with what's happening, with the transformation that is happening. And with that, basically, we covered everything that I wanted to cover. I'm only 5 minutes over time, which is fantastic. Do come back at 1:45 because we're going to go into some practical ways. But before you leave, I do want to answer questions. So if you have questions, raise your hand. We have our wonderful volunteers helping run the mic. And I'll be way more tactical and dive into automation. So maybe that will be a little extra next level, but I promise you, it will give you a great idea of how you can implement some of AI practically in some of the things that you do, especially if it's something that it interests you with lead gen and marketing. All right, open for questions. Not all at once. Okay, here we go.
So this is more along the lines of when you talked about the math.
Yeah.
So recently we had an incident where it was at the high school, and I guess they had the opposite. They're scanning the AI documents or papers, right? And they're checking them to see if the kids use AI. So is it the opposite then?
So I know there's a lot of schools and universities that are implementing some kind of a AI check strategy because they do want to make sure that homework is done by the students versus by AI. I know LinkedIn has come up with a way to, for example, if you generate AI photos, it does give like a little like cheap, a showing that it's AI generated. And I will tell you, like some of the AI generated content that is fully 100% generated, it won't get as many impressions on LinkedIn because I've tried and I've ran A to B comparison than if it's like creatively, original. But then I feel like this is only a matter of now because the more we're moving into the future, the more this will be common practice. So it's almost like, what's a good example? Like someone that, I don't know, was using cell phones, like texting on a cell phone instead of calling back in the days when we had those like little tiny keyboard things. And it was frowned upon because it wasn't a letter or it wasn't a card, a personal touch that was sent. Nowadays, we're so used to that and like nobody even, does that anymore. Who sends letters? Who sends, cards or whatever? I mean, it's great that you do, but I'm just saying, right? So I feel like it's just a matter of now where that check is more prevalent, but into the future, I don't see like that's going to make much of a difference when like everybody's using it. It's like, okay, fine. Exactly. Yeah. But I agree with you, like, especially students that are there to learn some basic skills, life skills. They, like my son, I'm like, no, you cannot use ChatGPT to do your homework. You got to do your homework because you got to learn something, That's not to say that I don't encourage my kids. Like, for example, my 8-year-old, she loves Midjourney. She loves to doodle and write things. So I would take a picture of that and then run it through Midjourney and turn it into this crazy unicorn creations that she comes up with that come to life. You take that to one of those text to video tools and this unicorn starts flying now, you know? So it's just through little prompts like that. And to her, that is like the next level best show, better than TikTok or YouTube, you know? So there's AI for good, and there's AI that can be used for bad, right? And it is still up to us how we the balance, you know? Great question. Yes.
Many of us are using AI for businesses. We're putting our creativity in it, and then it develops a product. But my understanding is when you're using these products, then you can put them out there, and anyone, I guess the question is, there's really not any copywriting issues anymore. Is that correct? If you're using content from other people and you're using your content.
I mean, I feel like that's where that AI regulation comes into play. We're still figuring out what does that look like. Now, I will say, as a business owner or a business entity, if you do have content or if you have proprietary information, this is where custom GPTs come into hand. Like, I have clients that I will create custom GPTs for that are private. They only use that custom GPT, and within a private, now technically you do not share that information with the world. OpenAI says that it is not. I mean, we're going to take it with a grain of salt, right? I mean, I don't know how much of that is true or not. I want to trust that is true, but then it's not the only company that said, no, we're not going to use, your information. It's like, I literally just got letters that my kids' health information is on the internet because they got breached. So there is a risk. There's always going to be a risk with everything that you put out there. But as a business, if you have proprietary information, I would highly suggest to look into creating a custom GPT that is private to your clients, to your business. And I'll go into that a little bit more next session, because there's a lot of opportunity for you to use the tools, but without putting your proprietary information out on the map for anyone to use. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, you did amazing to be a very good audience, and I hope to see you at 1:45.